Fleet Commander Zurl stood before the massive observation window of the Araxian command vessel Eternal Vigilance, his 4 eyes narrowed at the holographic display. The unfamiliar ship that had appeared at the edge of their defensive perimeter was unlike anything in their vast database of known species. "Analysis," he commanded, his voice vibrating the air with subharmonic tones of authority. Science Officer Vila approached, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the ambient light. "The vessel employs an unknown propulsion system, Commander. Our sensors detect radiation signatures suggesting primitive fusion technology, yet its movement patterns indicate far more advanced capabilities." Weapons assessment. Tactical Officer Krell's digits flew across his console. "Unclear, Commander. The hull contains numerous apertures that could be weapon ports or simple venting systems. Energy readings are erratic." Zurl's upper eyes remained fixed on the display while his lower pair studied his crew. The Araxian hegemony had encountered 17 new species in the last cycle alone, but none had approached their territory so boldly, with such disregard for established protocols. "Initiate first contact procedures," he ordered. "Standard caution protocols. Defense screens at maximum." The communications array hummed to life, broadcasting across all known frequency spectrums. The standard Araxian greeting, mathematical sequences establishing peaceful intent followed by linguistic samples, streamed toward the unknown vessel. Nothing. "No response, Commander," reported communications specialist Hicks. "They're ignoring us," Krell hissed, his natural military suspicion rising. "Or they don't understand," Vila countered. Zurl raised a hand for silence. "Continue broadcasting. Tactical, prepare warning shots. 3 light bursts, standard pattern, wide dispersion." On the bridge of the UES Pathfinder, Captain Alina Reyes fought to maintain her composure as warning klaxons blared. Their first deep space mission beyond the Sol system had gone catastrophically wrong when their experimental FTL drive malfunctioned, hurling them into unknown space. "Status report," she demanded, wiping blood from a cut above her eye. "Drive core stable but offline," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her chief engineer. "Communications array completely fried during the transition. We're detecting massive energy buildups from the alien vessel, Captain." Ray steadied herself against her command chair. "Tactical, are they targeting us?" Lieutenant Rivera nodded grimly. "Affirmative. Their weapons systems are unlike anything in our database, but the targeting patterns are unmistakable." "Damn it." Reyes slammed her fist on the arm of her chair. "We have no way to communicate our peaceful intentions." The view screen suddenly blazed with light as the alien vessel fired what appeared to be warning shots. Energy bursts that dissipated harmlessly several kilometers from the Pathfinder. "They're testing our responses," Tactical Officer Lieutenant Chen observed. "Standard first contact procedure. Establish communication. Demonstrate superior firepower. Gauge reaction." "Options?" Rise asked, looking around at her crew. Dr. Nadia Ibrahim, the ship's xenobiologist, spoke up from her auxiliary station. "Captain, if they're following a logical first contact protocol, they're waiting to see if we run, attack, or attempt communication. And since our comms are down, they might interpret our silence as hostility." Rice finished the thought. Chief Engineer Jackson cleared his throat. "Captain, I might have a way to communicate without the array. If we modulate our shield harmonics in a specific pattern, it could be perceived as intentional. Mathematical sequences they might recognize as intelligent communication." "Do it," Rise ordered. On the Eternal Vigilance, Zurl watched in fascination as the human vessel's energy field began pulsing in a distinct pattern. "Commander, their shield emissions have changed," Science Officer Vila reported. "The pattern appears to be a mathematical sequence, prime numbers. They're attempting communication," Zurl realized. "Respond in kind. Use our lower-powered tractor beams to emit similar patterns." For several minutes, the two ships exchanged increasingly complex mathematical sequences. The tension on the Araxian bridge gradually eased. "I believe we're establishing basic communication parameters," Vila said. "Their technology is different, but clearly there." She never finished her sentence. A massive explosion rocked the void between the ships as the Pathfinder's unstable drive core suddenly emitted a powerful radiation surge. "They're attacking," Krell shouted, his battle reflexes taking over. Multiple energy signatures detected. "Defensive maneuvers. Return fire," Zural commanded instinctively, even as a small part of his mind registered doubt. The Araxian vessel's superior weapon systems unleashed a barrage of concentrated energy beams. The first volley caught the Pathfinder entirely by surprise, slicing through its weakened shields and scoring deep gouges in the hull. Emergency force fields activated automatically, preventing catastrophic decompression, but stretching the ship's damaged power grid to its limits. "We're under attack," Lieutenant Rivera shouted as the bridge erupted in chaos. "Direct hits to decks 3 through 7. "Return fire," Chen asked, hands hovering over tactical controls. Captain Rice hesitated only a fraction of a second. "No, that radiation burst must have been misinterpreted as an attack. If we fire back, we confirm their suspicions. We can't just sit here and take it," Jackson protested. "We're not going to," Rice said firmly. "Tactical. Prepare the EMW key." Chen's eyes widened. "The electromagnetic wave pulse. Captain, that's still experimental. And our only option for disabling their weapons without causing casualties," Rice finished. "Navigator, evasive pattern delta. Engineering, route all available power to forward shields. We need to get close enough for the EMWP to be effective." The Pathfinder lurched into motion, its movements seemingly erratic to the Araxian observers. "Their navigation systems must be damaged," Tactical Officer Krell observed. "Their course is inefficient, making them an easy target." Commander Zural wasn't convinced. "That pattern isn't random. They're approaching on a specific vector. Intensify forward shields." The human vessel took another hit but continued its approach, maneuvering in ways that seemed to defy the Araxians' targeting algorithms. Just as the Pathfinder reached optimal range, Captain Rice gave the order. "Activate EMWP." A wave of precisely calibrated electromagnetic energy erupted from the human vessel, washing over the Araxian ship. It wasn't designed to damage the vessel itself, but rather to temporarily disrupt energy-based systems. The effect was immediate. Weapons, shields, and several other systems aboard the Eternal Vigilance flickered and went offline. On the Araxian bridge, emergency lighting cast an eerie glow as officers scrambled to restore systems. "What happened?" Zural demanded. "Some form of targeted electromagnetic pulse," Vila reported, her voice tinged with surprise. "Remarkably sophisticated. Our systems are rebooting, but weapons and primary shields will require manual restart." "They could have followed with conventional weapons," Krell noted, confusion evident in his tone. "Why didn't they?" Zural studied the human vessel, which had taken a defensive position but made no move to continue hostilities, because perhaps they were never attacking in the first place. As systems slowly came back online, communications specialist Tix suddenly straightened. "Commander, I'm detecting a new transmission from the alien vessel. It's crude by our standards, but I believe they've reconfigured part of their sensor array to function as a makeshift communications device." "On screen," Zural ordered. The visual was distorted, but clearly showed a bipedal being with 2 eyes, no exoskeleton, and covered in some form of artificial protective layer. The being spoke, gesturing emphatically. "I can't translate the audio yet," Tix said, "but the mathematical sequences accompanying the transmission suggest apology and request for cessation of hostilities." Commander Zural made a decision that would change the course of history for both species. "Stand down all weapons. Prepare our most basic translation matrix and respond with similar messages of peace." Hours later, through painstaking back-and-forth communication, the misunderstanding became clear. The radiation burst had been an accidental discharge from the human's damaged drive system, not a weapon. The Araxians' warning shots had been interpreted as an unprovoked attack, and the humans had responded with a non-lethal option, specifically to minimize casualties while protecting themselves. In his private quarters, Fleet Commander Zural composed his report to the Hegemony Council. These humans, despite their apparently primitive technology, had demonstrated something the Araxians had rarely encountered: creative problem-solving under extreme pressure and a remarkable restraint in the application of force. They could have attempted to destroy us once our systems were compromised, he wrote. Instead, they chose communication over conquest. This species bears further study, and perhaps alliance. 3 standard cycles had passed since the initial confrontation between the UES Pathfinder and the Araxian vessel Eternal Vigilance. What had begun as a near-disastrous first contact had evolved into a cautious diplomatic exchange. The human ship, still unable to return to Earth due to its damaged FTL drive, had been escorted to Outpost Kexel, a remote Araxian research station. Captain Elena Reyes stood beside Fleet Commander Zural in the station's central observation dome, watching as human and Araxian engineers worked together on repairs to the Pathfinder. "Your people adapt quickly," Zural observed, his 4 eyes tracking the interactions below. "Most species take significantly longer to become comfortable with our biology and technology." Reyes smiled. "Necessity is the mother of invention, Commander. When you're stranded in unknown space with limited resources, you learn to be flexible." "A curious expression," Zural replied, "but apt. My science team remains particularly fascinated by your engineer's solution to the power compatibility issues." Jackson had indeed impressed the Araxians by creating a functional interface between their crystalline energy distribution systems and the Pathfinder's conventional power grid, using materials that by all Araxian engineering principles should have been incompatible. "Humans have a long history of making things work with whatever's available," Reyes explained. "Our history is filled with technological advances born from desperate circumstances." Their conversation was interrupted by the station's alert system. Science Officer Vila approached rapidly, her crystalline exoskeleton pulsing with urgency patterns. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected an anomaly approaching the station," she reported. "The energy signature matches nothing in our database." Zural's posture stiffened. Magnification on the main display. The massive screen activated, showing a distant distortion in space. As they watched, the distortion resolved into a vessel, if it could be called that. The shape seemed to shift and flow, more like a liquid than a solid construct. "What the hell is that?" Reyes whispered. "Unknown," Vila responded, "but it's absorbing all scan attempts. Our sensors simply bounce off." Tactical Officer Krell joined them, his movements sharp with military precision. "Commander, we're detecting energy buildups consistent with weapons charging. Whatever it is, it's not here for peaceful contact." "Alert status," Zural ordered. "All defensive systems online. Captain Reyes, I suggest your crew return to your vessel as a precaution." Reyes nodded, activating her communicator. "Reyes to Pathfinder. Red alert. All personnel return to ship immediately." She turned to Zural. "Commander, if this turns hostile, the Pathfinder will stand with you. We're still damaged, but our EMWP is functional, and our point defense systems are online." "Appreciated, Captain," Zural replied, genuine warmth in his subharmonic tones. The unknown entity accelerated suddenly, closing the distance to the station with impossible speed. Before either the Araxians or humans could react, it emitted a pulse of energy unlike anything their sensors had ever recorded. Station power fluctuated wildly. Systems shut down across multiple sectors. The observation dome's screens flickered with static. "What just happened?" Reyes demanded, steadying herself against a console. Vila's digits flew across her workstation. That pulse, it wasn't just energy. It contained data, complex code that's attempting to interface with our systems. A technological attack, Zural realized. Kral, isolate all critical systems. Initiate emergency lockdown protocols. On the screens that remained functional, they'd watched in horror as the entity began to change form, extending tendrils of what appeared to be both matter and energy toward the station. "It's not a ship," Dr. Ibrahim said, having joined them from the Pathfinder. "It's a techno-organic construct, almost like a massive, space-capable artificial intelligence with its own physical form." As they watched, the entity attached its tendrils to the station's exterior. Immediately, the affected areas began to change, the metal and composite materials transforming, as if being converted at the molecular level. "It's assimilating our technology," Vila reported, horror evident in her voice. "And it's working through our firewall algorithms at an impossible rate. Station systems will be compromised within minutes." Jural turned to Reyes. "Captain, your vessel must withdraw. There's no logic in both our species falling to this entity." Reyes shook her head firmly. "That's not how humans operate, Commander. We don't abandon allies." She activated her communicator again. "Reyes to Jackson. Status on the quantum isolation protocol we discussed." "Theoretical but possible," came the reply. "We'd need to access the station's central processor and modify it to generate a quantum field that would prevent further digital infiltration. But Captain, we'd need Araxian help to implement it." Reyes looked at Zural. "Commander, my engineer has a potential solution, but it would require unprecedented access to your systems." Zural didn't hesitate. "Granted. Vila, provide whatever assistance they require." What followed was a remarkable collaboration between species. While Araxian defense systems fought to slow the entity's advance, human and Araxian engineers worked feverishly to implement Jackson's quantum isolation protocol. The entity, seemingly sensing the resistance, intensified its efforts. Sections of the station began to transform more rapidly, and several Araxian crew members who had been trapped in those areas fell silent, their life signs vanishing from the station's monitors. "It's not just assimilating technology," Dr. Ibrahim realized after analyzing sensor data. "It's absorbing biological information as well. Learning, adapting." In the central processor chamber, Chief Engineer Jackson worked alongside Science Officer Vila, their different physiologies requiring constant adjustments to their collaborative approach. "Your crystalline computing architecture is fascinating," Jackson commented as they reconfigured the processor. "Quantum state processing at the molecular level. We've only theorized about this. And yet your approach to quantum isolation is entirely novel to us," Vila replied. "Using uncertainty principles to create a field that prevents predictable data transfer. Our scientists never considered it." On the bridge of the Pathfinder, now docked but ready for immediate departure, Lieutenant Chen had made a discovery. "Captain, I've been analyzing the entity's energy patterns," she reported to Reyes. "There's a resonance frequency that appears to be central to its cohesion. If we could generate a counter-frequency, we could disrupt its ability to maintain structural integrity." Reyes finished. "Can the Pathfinder systems be modified to generate such a frequency?" "Yes, but not powerfully enough," Chen replied. "We'd need the station's power grid to amplify it." Reyes relayed this information to Zural. The Araxian commander immediately grasped the potential. "If your engineer completes the quantum isolation protocol, we could then redirect the station's power to generate this counter-frequency," he suggested. A two-pronged defense. The plan came together with remarkable speed. As the entity breached the outer sections of the station, the combined human-Araxian team activated the quantum isolation field. The effect was immediate. The digital infiltration halted, unable to penetrate the field of quantum uncertainty that now protected the station's core systems. The entity paused, as if confused. Then, it changed tactics, intensifying its physical assimilation of the station's structure. "Now for Phase 2, Reyes ordered. "Lieutenant Chen, transmit the counter-frequency parameters to the station's power distribution center." The Araxian engineers, following Chen's specifications, reconfigured their crystalline power network to generate the precise counter-frequency. Massive amplifiers, normally used for deep space communication, were repurposed to project the frequency directly at the entity. The result exceeded all expectations. The entity's form began to destabilize, its shifting appearance becoming increasingly chaotic. The tendrils connecting it to the station writhed and then detached, unable to maintain coherence under the assault of the counter-frequency. "It's working," Vila exclaimed, but their victory was short-lived. The entity, displaying an intelligence that confirmed their worst fears, began to adapt. Its form stabilized, though differently configured than before, and it retreated to a safe distance. "It's learning," Dr. Ibrahim warned, "evolving in real time to counter our defense." Jural and Rais exchanged glances, a moment of perfect understanding passing between two species that had been strangers just cycles earlier. "We need something unpredictable," Rais said. "Something it can't adapt to because it follows no logical pattern." Jackson's voice came over the comm. "Captain, what about the EMW? We could modify it to generate random frequency patterns based on quantum fluctuations, truly unpredictable even to us. And we could amplify it through our crystalline network," Vila added. "The combination would be unlike anything in known space." "Do it," both commanders ordered simultaneously. The modified plan required the Pathfinder to move into firing position while remaining connected to the station's power grid, a dangerous maneuver requiring precision piloting. As the human vessel maneuvered, the entity seemed to sense the threat, accelerating toward them with renewed purpose. "It knows," Kral observed. "It's attempting to stop us before we can deploy the weapon." "Evasive maneuvers," Rais ordered, though the Pathfinder's movement was limited by its connection to the station. The entity launched a concentrated energy beam at the human vessel. The Pathfinder's shields, still damaged from the earlier encounter, flickered dangerously. "Shields failing," Rivera reported. "One more hit like that, and we're exposed." Without hesitation, Commander Zural ordered the Eternal Vigilance to position itself between the Pathfinder and the entity. "Your vessel must survive to deploy the weapon," he transmitted. "We will provide coverage." The Araxian vessel took the next hit intended for the Pathfinder, its advanced shields absorbing most of the impact, but still sustaining significant damage. "EMWP modifications complete," Jackson reported. "Ready to fire on your command." "Station power systems aligned," Vila confirmed. "Amplification ready." Rais looked at Zural's image on the view screen, nodding in silent gratitude and respect. "Fire." The modified EMWP activated, generating quantum random frequency patterns amplified to unprecedented levels by the Araxian crystalline network. The result was a cascade of energy that enveloped the entity in patterns so chaotic that no system, no matter how advanced, could adapt quickly enough. The entity's form destabilized completely, breaking apart into smaller and smaller components until nothing remained but dispersing energy readings. In the aftermath, as human and Araxian crews worked to repair the damaged station, Fleet Commander Zural and Captain Reyes once again stood in the observation dome. "Your species continues to surprise us," Zural admitted. "Our predictive model suggested a 97.8% probability that you would attempt retreat when the entity attacked. Instead, you proposed alliance." Reyes smiled. "Humans have a saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What we accomplished together was beyond what either of our species could have done alone." "Indeed," Zural agreed. "The High Council has reviewed my report and reached an unprecedented conclusion. When your drive is repaired, they've authorized me to provide you with navigational data for safe return to your homeworld, and to extend an invitation for formal diplomatic relations." "I think Earth will be very interested in that invitation," Rais replied, "especially after I report how your ship placed itself in danger to protect ours." As they watched their crews working seamlessly together below, human ingenuity complementing Araxian precision, Both leaders recognized that they were witnessing the beginning of something remarkable, an alliance born from misunderstanding but forged in common purpose. Perhaps, Zural observed, the entity did us a service, Captain Reyes. Without this threat, our species might have taken years to discover what we now know. What's that, Commander? That different approaches to the same problem. Your human adaptability and our Araxian precision create possibilities neither could imagine alone. In the vastness of space, as news of the encounter spread through both civilizations, a new chapter in galactic history had begun, one where humanity's reputation would precede them, adaptable, unpredictable, and remarkably collaborative when facing impossible odds. Warning: hostile human ship on the horizon. The alert that had once signaled potential conflict now represented something far more significant: the arrival of a species that defied conventional understanding and promised to change the galaxy forever.